Chapter 21. Ginny, I love you. Harry was jumping from border to border, without thinking or stopping. Guards shouted in his direction, trying to halt him. But they were only a flicker in a corner of his eye, soon disappeared, as he was throwing some other flue powder in the fire, shouting the name of the following country. There was only the next border in front of him, and the next, and the next, in an interminable succession of countries, and outraged shouts of protest in foreign languages he couldn't comprehend. He was mildly aware all this acting transportation was rendering him sick, but it seemed as though it wasn't him the one getting sick, but another person sharing his body. The real him was only focused on one goal: get to Ginny. He hadn't halted to reflect on what to do or what he was going to do once there. He only must get there. His mind was engulfed of ghastly visions, with the same tint of his graveyard nightmares. He had lived so many times this moment, he couldn't count. The same powerlessness was there, like swimming against the tide. All these borders, all this time lost, while the awareness of what was happening there was giving him no respite. Every second it waited on him, like an hour, and yet he couldn't move any faster. Ginny was screaming in agony, and he was still so far. His nightmares were mingling with reality, terrorizing him with the notion that not even one of those he had managed to save her. Blindly, he strode through a border more. Somebody got hold of him, yelling something. He socked a face to get free, and he was shouting the name of the next country. Leave your wand on the floor and push it toward me. 854 was in the middle of the room. Signs of a fight were surrounding him. Pieces of furniture smashed, overturned, and traces of blood here and there. Ginny had clearly put up a fight. 854's garments were torn, and he was sporting a broken nose and scratches on his arms and face. But he was standing with his wand pointed toward Harry, and Ginny's one in his pocket. He had lost Harry's features, and exactly the same face as the faux glass was staring at him. Ginny was some feet from him, sprawled on the floor. Her face was covered by untangled hair, and she was bleeding, but it was difficult to understand from where. Her nightshirt was stained and disheveled, and her skin was covered with red bruises and scars. She was completely still, and seeing her so emaciated, Harry found himself petrified by shock, quickly followed by terror. Leave your wand on the floor and push it toward me, 854 repeated. His expression was stern, but it was possible to detect a glimmer of satisfaction in his eyes, looking at Harry's shocked expression. The sound of the wizard voice awakened him, and with a tone barely audible, he asked, "What did you do to her?" 854, hearing this question, affected a laugh. Use your imagination. Think the worst and make it twice as bad. I always found that imagination was so much better than a boring recital. And turning back serious, he added, "Now, I don't want to repeat this again. Leave your wand on the floor and push it over me," he ordered, marking every word concisely. "Otherwise, somebody is going to get even more hurt." And saying this, he moved his wand from Harry to Ginny. "If you try any funny business if you give me so much as a scrap of a reason. I won't cheat you. But here. Is that clear? Harry nodded, and without any other resistance, dropped his wand on the floor and pushed it to him. He didn't think for a moment to do anything else. He couldn't risk it with Ginny in that condition. He was reflecting on a way to prevail on the wizard without the wand, not because he was Death Eater, not because he was dangerous, not for revenge. To him, the wizard was invisible. He was only a barrier that forbade him to get to Ginny. His gaze was continually moving on where she lay, trying to understand if she was breathing, hoping to see a slight movement that would mark her as alive. 854 stooped down to pick Harry's wand. He inspected it interested. Nice, he said, brushing his fingers on it. He must be Ollivander. Two were good ones. Mine was from there too, I believe. The wizard I got it from seemed well off, he remarked, pocketing beside Ginny's one. Shame, I need to use this one now. It seems the friendliest. He frowned, nodding to the wand in his hand. Harry wasn't listening to him, but was observing each and every of his movement, trying to detect a soft spot, any lowering of his guard. Although his mind was obfuscated by the impulse of running to Ginny, every second was vital. He couldn't waste any. Unfortunately, mine is still in Azkaban, the wizard continued. Shame, he was... Is she alive? Harry interjected, frustrated. He had no intention whatsoever to listen to his stupid ranting while Ginny was bleeding on the floor. 854 seemed for a moment hurt at being interrupted, but then smiled shiftily. I'm sure I have no idea. Shall we check? He asked, moving some steps toward her. Don't touch her! Harry snarled, all his body contracted in an effort not to spring, but at the same moment ready to spring any time. 854 halted, and then, slowly arching his eyebrows, smirked. Are we jumpy, are we? I don't think you are in any position of telling me what I can or cannot do. Anyway, since I feel particularly well disposed, and I touched enough for today, I won't. And tilting his head on one side, and booming in a broad smile, you can thank me now. Harry felt a searing hate gutting him, and he knew at that moment that he could have killed that man. Mercilessly, no pity standing in the way. He could have killed him, and he would have relished the act. For the first time in his life, he was sure that having the use of his wand, the Avada spell would have poured from it strong and without impediment. Because you must mean an unforgivable course, and he meant it wholeheartedly. 854, not receiving an answer, sobered, and steadying again his wand toward Ginny, repeated darkly, I said you can thank me. Thank you, Harry muttered quickly, clenching his fists. The wizard, hearing it, brightened. No problem. I've always been kind of noble at heart. You know, once the Dark Lord gave me a mission. Harry had barely the patience to listen to his rant, but the attention of the wizard was diverted from him in their accounting, giving him an opportunity that Harry decided to seize. He sprinted and lunged on 854. The wizard, surprised by Harry's sudden physical attack, staggered for a split second, giving him time to give him a nudge against the broken nose strong enough, he hoped, to make him lose consciousness. He stooped on him, crawled on the floor to get his wand, but as he was about to seize it from his pocket, 854, who hadn't lost consciousness at all, shouted, "Cruto!" Harry winced, ready to feel the excruciating pain. But it didn't arrive. Instead, a red gossamer hit Ginny straight in the chest, and a prolonged piercing scream left her lips as she crouched on herself, all her body twitching. That scream shattered in Harry everything. His control over himself, his hate for 854, and his power of thinking. Yelling her name, he darted toward her. The wizard didn't try to stop him. Still crawled on the floor, keeping the free hand on his bloody face, only laughed heartily without lowering his wand from where the red light was fading. Harry dropped on his knees on her side, scooping her twitching body up. He freed the bruised face from her hair. Her eyes were closed. She wasn't responding to his touch. Her face, her hair, that moment reminded him so much of another similar event of 3 years previously that rendered him numb with dread. But unlike that time, he perceived with some relief her breathing, weak, but nevertheless there. "I'm here, Ginny. Don't worry, it'll be fine," he murmured, his voice slightly shaking, kissing her forehead. The wizard, hearing this, despite still keeping a hand on the nose clearly in pain, burst out laughing. He advanced, keeping his wand pointed at them. "You are funny. What makes you think that? It's so obvious it won't be. At least not for you. Not for her," he continued, shrugging his shoulders incessantly. "You have been really stupid. But I've been even more stupid, I grant you. However, I've learned my lesson, as you have learned yours, I guess. You don't mess with me. Now, stand back." But Harry didn't budge. He was not going to stand back, whatever it took. He only kept her pinned in his arms, crouching to shield her as much as possible with his body. The wizard repeated his injunction, and not seeing Harry complying, he folded his arms and grunted, "Why must you force me to be nasty? We could enjoy ourselves so much better if you stood back." Harry didn't answer. All his mental efforts focused on protecting Ginny. He knew help was going to come. He didn't know when, but it must come. He only needed to find a way to keep Ginny safe until then. 854 walked to the table where there was a bottle. He poured some of the content in a glass, and then slouched on the couch, observing them coldly. He toyed with the glass, making the golden liquid in the inside swaying circularly. "I don't care about your bitch of a wife. It's you I want to see dead," he said after a while, taking a sip of the glass content. 10 years I spent in that shithole," he growled. "Nothing will make amends for that," he yelled angrily, smashing the glass on the floor. Harry hadn't moved. He was only slightly caressing Ginny's head as to reassure her, but she was unconscious, and all he was actually doing was trying to reassure himself. He was on the queue for any noise, for any chance to escape, carefully weighing every possibility. Disapparition was impossible, and no noise could be heard from the outside. The wizard had done everything properly. He was the first thing realized getting in the house. Even the fire had been barred to avoid the entrance of any other wizard but him. When he had seen his doppelganger in Ginny's room from the fire in his office, it had taken him a few seconds to grasp the meaning of it. And when finally it got through, the sheer panic that took possession of him didn't even give him the chance to plan something concrete. He only wanted to go to her. The horror in him strove to form a plan in the confusion, trying to placate the impulse to jump into the fire straight away. He must warn somebody. It was unthinkable to go without doing it despite the injunction received. But the office was empty. Elizabeth, somewhere in the ministry, and every other hour out. A patronus would have been the best solution, but he found utterly incapable to cast one. The clock was ticking, and Ginny surely being tortured. He didn't have the time to concentrate on some happy thought. There were none in his head. He must go. There was no time, nor concentration enough for a plan. The hour was only strong enough to make him grasp a paper, write the address, and only one sentence. Here's got Ginny. He was left on the floor, close to the fireplace. That was the only thing he had managed to do before to step into the fire. Hopefully, Elizabeth would have passed by his office to bid goodbye before to go home, and hopefully she would have spotted the paper. Every of his hope was standing on this shaking ground. He only needed to find a way to keep Ginny safe until then. To overcome the wizard seemed impossible. He had bound his chance, and now he had Ginny in his arms, couldn't contemplate to let her go. He couldn't relinquish that fragile body that nestled unconscious against him. It was unthinkable. He ought to protect her. He couldn't run the risk of her receiving any other course. She was already too weak to bear it. Never, like at that moment, it struck him how small and frail she was, disappearing almost completely in his arms. He was keeping her tightly, trying to transfer to her some of his strength, trying to gather some more for himself, sure of what was about to come. 854 had slumped back against the sofa with a sullen expression. I can console myself somehow, though. I'll be famous, for one thing. Everybody will fear my name after I've killed you. I'll be mentioned in any textbook as the powerful wizard who killed Harry Potter. He paused in consideration. But you agree with me that I still deserve some payback for those 10 years of life lost, don't you think? He had spoken those words almost lazily, the hand with his wand lying listlessly beside him. Concluding his speech, he raised it only slightly. We can start, I dare say, a crucial for every year to start with, and then we will see. I can heal you enough to keep going for a while, or at least to witness what I'll do to your beach once you won't be able to move anymore. What do you think of it? You can beg me any time to stop, though, and I'll consider it, he said, and without waiting for an answer, he imparted the wand a little flick. Harry felt a spasmodic pain trespassing all his body. His bones seemed on fire, his muscles snapping, his brain swelling on the verge of explosion. It was annihilating pain that made him contract against. It was a torture he had experienced before. However, he could remember very well the memory of the pain, but not the actual pain. Hence, it hit as strong as ever. Exactly as when 15 he had confronted Voldemort in the graveyard. It was that moment, all over again. When he stopped, Harry was wheezing heavily, endeavoring to build a barrier to be ready for the next. Are you going to beg me now? 854 asked without changing his affected boredom, and, not receiving any answer from Harry, heaved a deep sigh. All right, you asked for it. And another flick marked another shattering torture, always the same, but always different in devastating effect over his body. This time it lasted so long that brought up a strong retching that made him throw some yellow bile on the floor. Fits of cough and vomit gave him no respite. Heaving heavily, he was trying to stop it to get back straight away in his armor to be prepared for the next. The wizard stood up and walked slowly toward them. He stopped far enough not to be grasped and stooped down to be on their level, reclining his head on one side. You know, it is rather stupid of you not to do as I asked. I'll kill you, all right? But you are making long and painful with your stubbornness. What's worse, when you are out, I'll be so pissed off by your refusal to comply that I will take it on your war. And I'll do my best to give her an excruciating death. Is this what you want? He paused, while Harry was trying to master his coughing, clenching Ginny tightly. If you beg me now, I'll kill only you. She doesn't need to die, you know. Harry wasn't naive. He knew he couldn't trust him. If he let go of Ginny now, he was sure 854 would have tortured and ultimately killed her under his eyes, because the goal of the wizard was clear. He only wanted to see him suffer as much as possible before to finally kill him. He was like Voldemort in every of his nightmares, with the only difference that now he wouldn't have let anything happen to her. Never, in his slumber, he had the power to protect the loved ones. Now he could, and he wasn't going to stand back. However, it was also true he was nevertheless about to die, leaving Ginny to his mercy. But he would have died protecting her, and that made all the difference. The wizard sighed melodramatically. As you want, have it your own way. It is also mine anyway, in the end. And the agony started again, and again, long, excruciating, his brain frying, his bones cracking, his muscle melting. And he would stop for a second to start again even stronger, and Harry was endeavouring with all his mind not to pass out. He must not, otherwise Ginny would have been in danger. He must die. He must cling on to consciousness, forcing himself to die. To protect her. He was the only way to save her. Only by this means the wizard wouldn't have been able to touch her after his death. She would have been safe from him. That piece of old magic had worked for his mom, and now he was sure he was going to work for him. He only needed to be strong and bear it consciously until the very end. The wizard was chatting away between a curse and the other, but Harry was barely hearing him, all his focus on remaining vigil. Shaken by retching, his stomach was empty. There was nothing else to vomit. A repressed cough was quaking him, but he kept his mouth clenched not to scream. He wouldn't give him the satisfaction of hearing him screaming. He was going to be a silent passing. He could hear, like from very far away, 854 offering him an Avada, if only he'd begged to be killed. It would have been wonderful to get one, having it over quickly and painlessly. It seemed a blessing. But he wasn't willing to give in only to make him gloat some more. He was dying at his terms. And he did again, triggering the umpteen retching, but he kept his mouth shut, that filled with a liquid ferrous taste. He gulped it down, but it was to no avail. It would pour again in it. Lukewarm, sticky rivulets were trickling down from his ears and nose. Perhaps, somewhere, somebody was laughing. He wasn't sure. He couldn't stop trembling. His limbs were getting numb, not allowing him to keep a grip on Ginny, who slipped from his arms and sagged on the floor. He did the same, but tried to kill over her in a last attempt to shield her. And he knew the end was coming. He could feel it. He knew the next course was going to be hit. He knew that the last seconds of his life were sliding away. He had no strength left, no power over his body, his mind confused. But there was something floating over the confusion. A last thing was surviving strenuously. He parted his lips, letting the blood that was filling his mouth gush out, and opened his eyes to be able to look at Ginny. He wanted to caress her, but his hands wouldn't respond. His sight was blurred, allowing him only to discern her red hair. So what he couldn't see, he pictured it, and saw a pretty, cheerful Ginny with her golden cat eyes, her freckles, and the cubic arch on her upper lip. She was smiling at him, and it was to her that he dedicated his last waking thought. Ginny, I love you, he murmured, with all of what his voice was left, hoping she would hear. And then it was only a sinking pain and nothing more. Ron, it's 11 o'clock, and Hermione won't stop nagging me to go home. She got a week holiday with Ginny and Luna, and it was totally fine. Now that I got here, obviously we need to go home. She wants to be back to Hugo, she alleges, but I know she just wants to be in Europe. Since yesterday, she is fidgeting, trying to grasp any occasion to seize a fire to call in England. This morning, I've barely seen her face, hidden by a newspaper after the other. Obviously, we didn't get any sex. I was very aroused yesterday. She was so hot with that dress, I could scarcely believe it was the same wife of mine that goes around the house with one of my old t-shirts and some utterly unappealing sweatpants. I noticed all the side glances she was getting by other men. I felt smug in the knowledge that she's my wife and I only can possess her. And I must say, opposite to Ginny, who was even too self-conscious, she was totally unaware of the admiration she was arousing. When we got home after the party, I had alcohol enough to be as horny as hell, and I couldn't wait to unwrap that corset from around there. For once we are alone without Hugo in the house, and we can let ourselves to all the noise that must please us. But no, obviously, she was too worried over the breakout, too tired, headache, and the usual bullshit. She wanted to call Harry. Obviously. She didn't even allow me to unzip her dress. She went straight to the loo, and once outside, she had one of my old t-shirts on, and the unappealing sweatpants. I was almost tempted to go straight out and look for a hooker. I swear. For God's sake, I need to have sex time to time. She cannot expect me to live a life of celibacy. I have needs. And since she scarcely gave it to me, I must look elsewhere. I don't go for hookers, but I had some other woman time to time when chance presented itself. I'm not proud of it, mind. Quite the opposite, and I keep it very quiet. If Mom found out, she would go nuts. Harry and Ginny would kill me, Hermione would chuck me, and I'd lose Hugo and Rose. I can't risk it. He must be kept quiet. With my job in England, it was pretty easy anyway. There was always a reason to work late. George was the only one who knew. Working together, it was impossible to hide it from him. I know he minds his own business, and he is not the kind to patronize. He only said that he will lie to cover me, so I must hope nobody will never ask him anything, and there is no reason anybody should, and that he hopes that Hermione does the same. The hell she does! If I found out something like that, I wouldn't answer of myself. If she would say yes a bit more often, there wouldn't be any need for me to do all of this. And again, mine, it doesn't happen so frequently. Woman, don't fall from the sky in my arms. I'm not Harry, who only needs to step out of his drawer to be surrounded. I need to toil. And yet, I've been accosted more than once by girls who wanted to get to Harry through his best mate. As I would ever do anything of the kind. They are prone to forget that together with best mate, I'm also brother-in-law. But well, despite clearly stupid, they are always quite hot babes, ready to do anything to have the chance to speak to him. I don't find it wrong to have profited of the thing a few times, since apparently Harry never does. Or so he says. Anyway, the happy life ended with us moving to Romania. Here, it's much more difficult working with Charlie and everything. He is not like George at all. Therefore, it's ages I don't get any. When we moved here, Hermione had been unusually caring and sweet. But I was so totally wretched and shattered, I didn't even notice. I killed a child. And not any child. My niece. My sister and my best mate's only daughter. And she was a wonderful child. A cheeky little girl. Always ready to laugh. I can't count all the time she stayed over our place to play with Hugo. She used to tell me I was her favorite uncle, and I always liked to tease her, saying that I was sure she was repeating it to every uncle. The one must never trust a woman when she speaks about favorites. She always laughed and answered I could believe her, because she wasn't a woman just yet. Hugo was smitten with her. He confided me in great secret more than once that he was going to marry her when 17. Sweet, isn't it? And I killed her. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to. But the stain is there. It won't wash away. I killed my son's sweetheart under his eyes. It will be harbored in him forever. It will be harbored in me forever. I made my whole family an outcast. I almost killed myself. I'm not proud of it. It was wrong, and I reproach myself bitterly since. But nobody can quite fathom what it means, Azkaban. Shut in a freezing cold cell with barely any sun. You have nothing to do all day long. 1 minute seems an hour, and you have no way to follow the flow of time. I was alone, with my dark thoughts, in this maddening environment, with the conviction that I was going to spend in there my whole life, and not having anything else to occupy my mind. Thoughts grew out of all proportion, and they started to be hunting, swallowing everything else. Even the joys of my life were tainted by it. I could never have faced my children again with this weight over my shoulders. My sister, my parent, my wife. I was brought to think that there was no way out, and from there it was an easy step to the only way out. It took me a long time to get over it, and now I just try not to think about it. I try not to think about that freckly little girl who used to say I was her favorite uncle. I try not to think that my hands are stained forever by a murder of a child. Harry not speaking to me doesn't help, but I can hardly condemn it. If the other way around, I would have killed him. Still, let's not forget the reason that triggered the accident. He shot my wife. For 7 years, he alleged himself my best mate, and I sacrificed everything for him. I accepted to be in the shadow, to be known only as the red guy who hung around with Harry Potter. I risked my life. I became a target too. I lost a brother. I gave him my family. I gave him my sister. And what did I get back? He shot my wife as soon as I turned my back. And he had the nerve to swear that she considered her only a sister. I'd like to see his face if I would not be Ginny. I feel my blood simmering every time I think about it. He knew what I felt for him. He couldn't not know. He just wanted to be always forced as usual. He wanted to teach me that I must be contented being second after him. He could have had any girl in school. None would have said no to him. There was only one I really cared, and he had to get that one. I've always found comfort in the fact that despite always in the shadow, despite not being particularly dashing or clever, Hermione chose me over him. He was the comfort of my life. The conviction that I was worth something after all. For somebody, I was better than Harry Potter. I don't know if it hurts more, his betrayal or hers. I thought she loved me. I hoped her, unlike everybody else, was immune to him. How could she do something like that? How could she tell me that she loved me after having been with none less than Harry? She was the only person who preferred me over him. Not even my family does. They all love Harry so much more than they ever loved me. Look how Mum and Dad fuss over him, how well George gets along with him. Even Bill invites him over more often than he ever invited me. But Hermione... We never discussed it. Afterward, I don't want to run the risk to hear something unpleasant. I prefer to pretend not to see what is so blatantly under my eyes daily. We all pretend politely not to see. I play dumb. Hermione hides it well. Ginny bears it composedly. The only one who probably didn't realize anything is Harry, never too quick to discern love in other people's eyes. Perhaps because he gets the same soppy look from everybody around him. Every single person in this world loves him. He's not accustomed to see anything else. But I know the love in Hermione's eyes is different. She longs for him in the same way as she longed for me at the beginning. In the same way as I long for her. You have no idea the mortification, the frustration of having to assist to Harry, cuddling her under my very eyes, and her loving face receiving those effusion, while when it's me doing the same, I can feel her rigidity, I can feel her coldness. Only when pregnant, softened by her state, I could indulge in those marks of affection without being rejected. But it never lasted that long, and after a while, I just stopped trying. It was only depressing. I've always known she was too much for me. I always wondered why, clever as she is, she chooses me. Now, after years, posing myself the same question while watching her reading a book, caring for our children, and get ready to go to work. Now, I know. She chose me because she couldn't have Harry, and I was the closest thing to him. And it's only a matter of time before she will realize that not only she doesn't love me, but she despises me, and she'll go away with my children. And I'll lose everything. I won't allow it. I won't allow her to leave me if I can avoid it. I'll keep her close to me in a way or other because I love her, and she must love me back. She must. She always does to me. She knows Harry will never love her. Even an idiot can see he's besotted with Ginny and doesn't give a damn about her. That is my only consolation. Still, I feel resentment toward him. He is everything I've always hoped to be, and he doesn't appreciate it at all. He despises his situation. He scorns all his lacks. He has got tons of money and doesn't care. He could easily buy a villa with swimming pool adorned with a bloody statue of him right at the feet of the Big Ben, and for mysterious reasons, they live in a quite common terraced house, in a quite common borough. He could have all the women he pleases. They literally beg him to be shagged, and he actually complains of it. I'm not joking. You understood perfectly well. I swear he complains of it. A tear escapes my eyes every time. The whole world worships him to such an extent that everything he says is gold. Everything he does is worth of notice. If he's seen buying something in a shop, the next day you can be sure that place is assaulted by customers. If he gets out with a tea cozy on his head, you can bet the next day everybody will do the same. In every bloody town of this bloody country there is a statue of him. Half of the children of the magical community are called Harry. The girls either Lily or Sunrise. He doesn't seem to notice. When he does, he only gets irked. Perhaps he should try, just for one day, to be a nobody as he wishes to be, and see if he likes it. Watching the world around you, not caring if you live or die, if you are happy or not, being insignificant. Being me, for example. I get so mad when I think of all those gifts wasted on him, when I really would make so much of it. I would appreciate them as they should be. And then perhaps I wouldn't care if Hermione would love me or not. I would stop to brood over it like a fool. Are you not ready yet? Hermione snaps while I'm swinging on the hammock in the porch looking at the glimmering sea. For Christ's sake, I got here yesterday. I didn't even swim yet. Can't we just relax for the day? Hugo is waiting for us. Hugo is fine. Charlie said not to hurry, I reply, setting back my sunglasses and slapping a bit farther down in the hammock. Ron, I want to go, so either you get a move or I'll go by myself. I'm almost tempted to accept to stay behind. Yesterday, at the wedding, there was a girl that seemed quite charmed by my cute British accent, as she described it, and she sent me one or two alluring glances. I didn't press the matter because I was sure I would have concluded with my wife, but seeing how it ended, it has proven to be a mistake. I can just ask casually Sean who she is and see if I can get anywhere. Girls here are just so hot, it makes one dizzy. I wouldn't mind staying a couple of days more. However, a hunch tells me that if I let her go, she's going to go straight to England, aka Harry, and I'd rather prefer to avoid that. Therefore, granting, I leave the hammock and I follow her inside. A whim of the moment makes me try and approach. I hug her from behind and I press my groin against her buttocks. She has a really gorgeous, round, firm backside. She tries to shrug me off, but I don't allow her to. Sometimes it works when I insist. I'm not sure whether because she gets her house or because she just doesn't feel like arguing, but I'd like to believe the first. So I thrust my hands under her t-shirt, playing the card persuasiveness. She has got a body that makes blood boil in my vein. Shame I'm never allowed to touch it. And today it seemed not to be an exception. Run, leave me alone and go pack your bag, she orders then, pushing me away. I'm so mad, it's better to keep my mouth shut. I go in the bedroom, and not having any other choice, I close myself in the loo to jerk off. As an act of revenge, I don't think about her in that slinky sexy corset, but I bring back my mind to one of the best shags I ever had. One of Harry's whippersnapper, brunette, huge tits, hot as a furnace. That evening, for a long time, I worked late very often. So much workload accumulated. Time to time, it was even necessary to work over the weekend. The girl didn't even try to extort me a silly promise regarding Harry to get light with her. However, It wasn't for free either. She never accepted money, but expected everything else. Between costly presents, paying all their bills, and rent, I've been relieved of quite a lot of gold. Worth every nuts anyway. It kept going for a while. But then, because all the good things must end, and because I'm always deprived of what gives me joy in favor of Harry, she told me she was going to change her life for Harry's sake. And it was either him or no man at all. Knowing Harry, it was going to be no man at all. Such a waste. But then, who knows? Perhaps she will manage by perseverance. She has certainly everything in the right place to succeed. I was in doubt whether to open Ginny's eyes to the possible danger, as I believe she hung around with them time to time. But then I desisted. She may have been tipped off by it, and I don't want the girl to spill the beans. Anyway, I just need to revisit one of those evenings to come as fast and as hard as ever. Feeling better, I get back to the room to pack what I brought with me. Not much, but still a few things in the hope of staying at least 2 or 3 days. While I stuff everything in my bag, I remember about wanting to get Rose a present. I must go downtown before to get back. I'm sure to be safe getting a book, but I don't want her to be always reading. She doesn't do anything else all day long already. She really got from her mother. That's probably why I'm so fond of her. I'll take her something nice to wear. But then, as a second thought, perhaps better not. She's starting to be a lot like her mother in body too. That's why I'm so concerned. She is too young to have any boys hanging around her. I won't allow any contacts if I can avoid it until she is at least 25, and then we will see. For the moment, she doesn't seem too interested in the other sex, thankfully. She still spends all her time with Albus. I bring my bag in the living room, and I shove it in a corner mutinously, sitting down at the table. Hermione's head is buried in a newspaper. On the cover, there is a picture of the escaped prisoners making. When she sees me sitting down, she sends me an hesitant glance. She surely feels guilty to have refused me twice in a row, and rightly at that. If you want to eat something, there is some bread. I got it this morning from the bakery around the corner. It's nice. She is always a degree nicer when she refuses me. At least. I wouldn't know, I answer with a bit of resentment. With Hugo waiting for us and everything, I'm not sure it's a good idea to linger just to eat. It's only 3 or 4 hours to get back after all. I reply sour, going nevertheless looking for the bread. Hermione pretends not to have heard and plunges herself in the reading again. I make myself a sandwich with what I find, and I sit in front of her, chewing lazily. Outside there is a blinding sun, and I really regret not to have time to go to the beach at least for a couple of hours. Can you believe the Death Eater had been missing for more than 12 hours before they realized he was gone? Hermione's voice comes from behind the newspaper, where this supposed Death Eater is lingering malevolently. Obviously they kept it quiet. Can you imagine the uproar? I managed to speak with Richard this morning, and he told me. I murmur a vague sound, not very interested, and I keep looking outside the window at the people on the beach, who, unlike me, are enjoying their day. Are you listening to me? Hermione snaps, seeing my absent demeanor. Ron, this is very serious? I roll my eyes annoyed. Jesus Christ, I'm listening. They'll catch it soon, don't worry. Actually, I don't think so. 12 hours is an awful long window of time. If he is any clever, he might be anywhere by now. Is there anything to drink? This sandwich made me thirsty. Hermione snorts, turns the page of the newspaper, and doesn't answer me. I go and have a look. There is nothing in here. She could actually have bought something knowing I was coming? I tried to call Harry. Her voice come to me from the other room. I repay her former silence with the same. I couldn't find him anywhere, she continues, pressing on for an answer. Surely he's sleeping. What time is in England now? I mumble, pouring me some water and getting back to the living room, trying to repress the irritation I always feel when Harry's name is mentioned by her. Ron, surely he's not sleeping with the Death Eater at large? I don't like her tone. It seems to imply a rebuke for my 10-hour sleep. I let Sleepless Night remark in response. Thank God we have our Harry who stays awake to allow us a peaceful sleep. This time it's her who doesn't like my tone. Are you ready or not? She presses on happily, folding the newspaper and putting it aside. I am, but I want to go to get a present for Rose first. You spoil her too much. We didn't get anything for Hugo. I spoil her as much as I want, and I'll get something for him too. She has got this thing that I spoil her, which is not true. Rose is simply far, and I never get to see her. The only thing I can do is to send her letters and presents. I know she gets a hard time at Hogwarts because of me. A present time to time is the minimum I can do. She is my baby, after all. Okay, be quick though, and go over to Ginny. Since Harry is not coming, she may want to come back with us up to Europe. In the meanwhile, I try to contact Elizabeth to check if she knows anything new. I absolutely disagree with Harry having left Ginny here by herself. He was the only one missing, and she spent half of the day trying to justify his absence. He has got this work fever like Hermione does, making all of us look like fools who loll about happy-go-lucky while they are the important ones saving our necks any other day. I'll talk to Ginny. Maybe she can persuade Hermione to stay here, at least for the day. She seemed quite chill out yesterday, not too worried about the breakout. Perhaps she will even want to accompany me downtown. I knock at the door, but I don't get any answer. Odd. Perhaps she's still sleeping. I try a second time, and 2 seconds later, I find myself face to face with Harry. Oh, hi! I say, surprised to see him there. I didn't know you were here. When did you arrive? Few hours ago, he says with a smile, and I'm baffled of actually having received an answer. It's the first time he addresses me in almost 3 years, let alone the smile. He, unlike me, must have had some. And the Death Eater? Got him, he says quite smug. Why don't you come in? He had his lips buckling into a huge beam. Just getting a coffee with Ginny. You can join us. I'm sure she'll be pleased. What the fuck? The Harry I know would have slammed the door on my face, and now he's inviting me inside for a coffee? Has he gone mad? I don't know why, but I feel a hint of fear running up to my spine. This is dodgy. He finally decided to take revenge and is going to kill me and dismember my body if I step inside. Or maybe Ginny brainwashed him once and for all. Most probably, actually. I find myself speechless, trying to understand the meaning of it all, while suddenly, behind me, I hear Hermione shouting at the top of her lungs my name frantically. I turn, and she's running at full speed toward me in her house attire. She didn't even wear her shoes. Although, seeing Harry, she flinches visibly and stops short by my side, slightly panting, looking at him transfixed. What's wrong? I ask, but she doesn't seem to hear me, as usual when Harry is involved. At least, now we know she won't be in such a rush to get back. Hi, Hermione, he says, with a shrewd smile I don't like at all. Harry, she stammers, evidently confused. Are you okay? Is everything fine? Yeah, just got here. Why don't you come inside for a coffee too? I was just inviting Ronald.
Ronald? What the? He must be totally pissed. He never and ever called me that. Nobody does apart from Mom when she's mad. And as I'm formulating this thought, that would have prevented me to hear the rest. The rest has no time to arrive. A flash of green light spurs abruptly from Hermione's wand, hitting Harry square in the chest.